Chapter 13, The Hope. The sun's orange glow streamed through the window of the office. Alexander was standing in the middle of the room, the light penetrated through the thin cotton of his shirt. He was trying to organize his thoughts and draw up a plan for the legislative body of the Ruthenian Empire. He's only been trying since 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but he felt like he's been going in circles. He's not getting anywhere with his plan. Damn it, he slumped down on his chair and continued writing. He racked up his brain up to the fullest, trying to remember every details of the Constitution he once read when he was passing the time in his company's legal office. What he knew about the United States Constitution is that it has 3 branches: the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary. Each one of these branches is supposed to impose checks and balances on one another. But writing up laws and constitution is not his forte, so, at this moment, he can't really think of a constitution, nor apply the US Constitution in Ruthenian Empire because of the difference in governance. Alexander's hand paused for a moment as an idea struck his mind. What if I just adopt the Empire of Britannia's constitution? It's just the same where the executive branch would be the emperor. Coming up with that thought, Alexander stopped writing and gave up, crumpling the papers he had initially written and dumping them in the trash can, frustrated, and decided to take a break. He needed to clear his mind. He'll just ask for counsel from the people who know. With that, he leaned back in his seat, feeling refreshed as he found an easy way out of his struggle. Not everything can be done by him. He needed people who have expertise in every field next to him to help him govern. He's certain that if he asks Sergei about the new constitution the people wished, he'll come up with something. Moments later, there was a knock on the door. "Open," Alexander called out. The door slowly creaked open. A silver-haired woman stepped inside the room with her eyes wandering around the office. "Christina." "Brother, you look exhausted." Alexander shrugged. "I'm just trying to come up with a new constitution, but it's not as easy as I thought." "Ah, what's a constitution?" She tilted her head to the side, curiously. Alexander's mouth dropped ajar after hearing her query. "What? You're seriously asking about that?" Christina pouted at him. "I'm just asking, brother. I don't know about it, though I heard the word once." Alexander sighed. "Basically, the Constitution is the rule of how the country is governed, how the law is written, how the country is run, and how the people should act," he explained simply and continued. "The people demanded participation and representation in the government called a legislative." Christina tilted her head to the side. "So what does the legislative do?" "The legislative is composed of elected representatives. These elected representatives will propose and approve the law, discuss the work of the emperor's government, and they will be able to look at the budget," Alexander concluded. Christina gasped softly as if she was enlightened. "If you know that much, dear brother, how come you're struggling?" "Well, it's because they are composed of 10 to 20 well-written and concise articles which I can't basically come up with." The room fell silent for a moment as the two can't come up with a new topic of conversation. Alexander decided to break the silence as he finally spoke up. "Oh, I just remembered I need to go to the lab to see the incubated bacteria for Anna's medicine." "Is that so? May I come with you?" Christina asked. "That's fine by me, I'm gonna need help anyways." "Then it's settled." Christina followed her brother as they walked to the lab. "Okay, put on a lab coat and a mask, you know the drill," Alexander ordered as he went over to the incubator. Christina nodded and did as she was told. Alexander took out a petri dish, each containing spores that come in a variety of spore colors. "Okay, we're going to use a microscope to scan each of the petri dishes. If you see a thread-like net called mycelium, oh never mind, I found it," Alexander hailed by glancing at one of the petri dishes. He lifted the petri dish containing the Streptomyces griseus strain. "Oh, I'm so lucky. Well, never mind what I just ordered you and help me concoct a medium." "A medium?" She looked at him, puzzled. "Brother, you have to slow down and dumb the process down for me." Okay, I'm sorry, I got carried away by my luck," he chuckled. "I need your help to mix the medium. I will explain how the process goes." Alexander began explaining the process of developing a medium. The medium he used before was a nutrient agar, a general medium. But today he'll create a medium used specifically for growing Streptomyces griseus in a large scale. However, this time, for the fermentation process. Well, there are two industrial media for streptomycin production, Woodruff and McDaniel, and Hock and Hull. Alexander decided to use Hock and Hull since they already have the ingredients ready for it. He began relaying his orders to Christina. Okay, extract 2.5% of glucose from the glucose vial, 4% of soy meal, 0.25% of sodium chloride. Wait, stop, Christina snapped, stopping Alexander from speaking. What? What's wrong? Alexander looked at her in surprise. You're going too fast, she complained. Slow down. Okay, just watch me. Alexander took over her work and proceeded to concoct the Hock and Hull medium. Wait, aren't you going to teach me? Maybe next time, this requires precision. She sighed. Understood, I'm just going to watch. After mixing all the ingredients, Alexander transferred 4% of inoculum from the Petri dish into the medium. Next, Alexander cleaned the fermentation tank with water to avoid contamination from bacteria. Once it was completed, Alexander fed the substances into the fermenter tank and switched the machine on. The motor inside the fermentation tank started to spin and produced a whirring sound that it's unpleasant for the two to hear. Christina covered her ears with her finger as she asked about the situation. What is happening? The blades inside the fermentation tank are starting to convert the primary metabolites to the secondary metabolites. Brother, dumb it down for me again please. It means the production of streptomycin has begun, Alexander answered. Now I'm going to set the temperature at 28 degrees Celsius and add proline for a high yield of streptomycin. Now it takes 5 to 7 days for the fermentation to complete as it undergoes 3 phases. And what happens after the fermentation is complete? Alexander's lips curve into a smile. It only meant one thing. Once it's complete, we'll obtain the streptomycin. The cure for Anna? Do you speak the truth, dear brother? Christina looked him in the eye, brimming with hope and joy. Of course, it'll have to undergo filtration and purification before it can be used as medicine. But I'll explain the process once the fermentation is complete. Christina's eyes widened, smiling radiantly. That means in 7 days, the cure for Anna will be completed, and she will be saved. Thank you, brother. Christina jumped and hugged him tightly. Ouch, ouch, you're hugging me so tight. Okay, I know you're happy, but please get off me. Sorry, she said as she released him from her embrace. I just can't help it. When the doctor said that there was no cure for her disease, I was heartbroken and was praying to the Lord for a miracle. Now it had come. It's too early to celebrate, Christina, Alexander said, and saw Christina's enthusiastic behavior slowly turn into sadness. Concerned, Alexander gripped her shoulder gently. Sorry, I didn't mean to. Brother, she looked up to him. Your cure is going to work, right? It's going to save Anna, right? Please, brother, says that it's true. Alexander nodded. Of course, it will work. Sorry for killing your hopes up all of a sudden. Christina shook her head as she placed her hand on her ample bosom. No, I should be the one to say sorry. I got excited after you said it'll be done in 7 days. Good thing that we can finish it earlier than scheduled. Christina's gaze off to the fermentation tank that was vibrating from the spinning of the motors. Inside that tank is the miracle drug that will save her sister Anna, a drug that will change her outlook in life. Comment. For comment. Vote. 1 left. Send gift. Chapter 14, I guess it's a success. Alexander just experienced the busiest day he had experienced in his life in this world. His schedule is packed. A lot of meetings to attend, speeches to be made, a resolution to be passed, and so on and so forth. The Council of Ministers, which is primarily the advisory body of the emperor in ruling the Ruthenia Empire, was in an emergency session about a rough idea of the constitution he had in mind. Since this is something out of his expertise, he needed counsel from the people who knew a lot about bureaucracy. Alexander suggested that they adopt the same constitution as the Britannia Empire, a constitutional monarch, but a king retains the power of the executive. His councils of ministers were engaged in a long discussion amending and improvising the Britannian constitution to suit the Ruthenian Empire's needs. In the end, they agreed to the creation of a new legislative body called the Imperial Parliament of the Ruthenian Empire. Each administrative division of the Ruthenian Empire will have a representative voted by the people within the realm regardless of age, sex, religion, and class. This will be a vital process that would ensure equality and justice for every Ruthenian citizen. The representative must be at least 30 years of age and pass a vetting process. The new parliament will have the power to make laws, approve or veto bills, approve taxes and expenditures, approve treaties, issue declarations of war, check the work of the government, and others to be determined. The Emperor of Ruthenia shall be head of the government and shall be commander-in-chief of the armed forces. He shall be responsible for implementing and enforcing the laws written by the Imperial Council. He shall have the power to oversee treaties and appoint members of his councils of ministers. Appoint the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, appoint the members of the Supreme Court, and approve and veto bills passed by the Imperial Parliament. The judicial power of the Ruthenian Empire shall be vested in one Supreme Court, and in such inferior courts as the Imperial Council may from time to time ordain and establish. The judges, both of the Supreme and Inferior Courts, shall hold their offices during good behavior, and shall, at stated times, receive for their services, a compensation, which shall not be diminished during their continuance in office. After long hours of vetting the new constitution, the councils of ministers, along with the Prime Minister, and with the final decision of the Emperor, everyone agreed on the new constitution. After concluding the discussion about the constitution, Alexander proceeded to the rights of the Ruthenia people. Bill of Rights 1. Every human being has the right to life, liberty, and security of person. 2. All are equal before the law and are entitled without any discrimination to equal protection of the law. 3. No one shall be subjected to arbitrary arrest, detention, or exile. 4. No one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. 5. Everyone has the right to recognition everywhere as a person before the law. 6. Everyone has the right to an effective remedy by the competent national tribunals for acts violating the fundamental rights granted him by the Constitution or by law. 7. Everyone has the right to an effective remedy by the competent national tribunals for acts violating the fundamental rights granted him by the Constitution or by law. 8. Everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This right includes freedom to change his religion or belief, and freedom, either alone or in community with others and in public or private, to manifest his religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. 9. Everyone has the right to freedom of expression. This right shall include the freedom to hold opinions without interference and to seek, receive and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. 10. Everyone has the right to freedom of peaceful assembly and association. 11. Everyone has the right to take part in the government of his country, directly or through freely chosen representatives. 12. Every citizen shall have the right to vote and to be elected at genuine periodic elections which shall be by universal and equal suffrage and shall be held by secret ballot, guaranteeing the free expression of the will of the electors. 13. No soldier shall, in time of peace, be quartered in any house, without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. 14. A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, shall not be infringed. With this Bill of Rights, most of the petitions filed by the people would be complete. The only thing he needed to do is to ratify the new constitution, marking up the large political reform in the history of the Ruthenian Empire. After deliberating with his councils of ministers, Alexander went on to speech, announcing the creation of the new legislative branch of the Ruthenian Empire and their most awaited proclamations. His speech and announcement were broadcasted through radios and disseminated via newspapers. The citizens across the vast lands of the Ruthenian Empire were celebrating in the streets as they chanted the phrase, "Long live the Emperor! Long live Ruthenia. Alexander was feeling the warmth of his people via reports from the high officials of every region across the empire. With that settled, Alexander finally can move on to another phase, which will be modernizing the Ruthenia Empire. The Ruthenia Empire is falling behind the rest of its neighbors in terms of infrastructure, military, and economy. In order to get Ruthenia back on the world stage, Alexander must put in every effort and resource to reinvigorate the Ruthenian Empire. A huge endeavor requires a lot of peacetime, money, and patience. Although he already has a plan, he can't put himself into action after being bombarded by tasks and meetings. Alexander couldn't take it anymore and decided to take a nap. The only thing that is left to do is to save Anna from tuberculosis. The fermentation would end in 6 days, he just need to wait for it to complete. 6 days has passed, the fermentation was now complete. Alexander began the process of extraction and purification. Streptomycin after the fermentation process is impure in form. Fortunately, this is the part where everything is basic and can be done within 10 minutes. As the streptomycin was in form of mycelium, Alexander has to separate it via filtration. Once it is complete, the streptomycin is recovered. However, this streptomycin is impure in form, so he has to purify it. In purification, Alexander mixed the impure streptomycin with methanol and acetone as precipitating agents. For about 4 or 5 minutes, the streptomycin will begin to precipitate in the bottom part of the test tubes. After settling, Alexander filtered the precipitate until it is free from the impurities. Finally, Alexander was able to produce pure streptomycin. He lifted the glass dish up and saw a white powdery substance. What he is holding right now is the first effective treatment for tuberculosis. If this powder saved her life, he's gonna have a lot of explaining to do. No one would believe an Imperial Prince who loves to fool around and has no medical background miraculously produced a medicine against the most deadly disease. Good thing that he had it documented in his mind. He is going to make the process and extraction as detailed as possible. In one final step, he'll have to turn this powder into a liquid form. Streptomycin is administered intramuscularly. To do that, 1 gram of streptomycin is diluted with 1.8 milliliters of sterile water, producing 400 mg/ml of streptomycin solution, then add 0.9% of sodium chloride. With this, the medicine is ready for use. Comment 17. Comment Vote 1 left. Send gift. Chapter 15. The Cure. The stars on the black dome overhead glimmered with innumerable constellations as if they were an overturned jewelry box. High above, shooting stars streamed towards the horizon line. But Alexander found out that none of those patterns resembled that of Earth. He's been observing the night sky with keen interest, and could not take his eyes away. Although it is not the reason why he is looking at the sky, he is merely doing it to pass the time as he was waiting for someone. As the comfortable breeze of the night caressed his face and the cold air pricked his skin, Alexander wrapped his arms around his body. It was a pleasant feeling. Alexander looked at his wristwatch. The man he is expecting to come should arrive soon. 5 minutes later, a middle-aged man dressed in a white coat walked down the brick-paved path towards the palace's main entrance where Alexander was standing. He was escorted by 2 imperial guards, walking side by side. The man is carrying a brown bag. It was the man appointed by the late emperor to become Anna's royal doctor. Sir Dmitri, I've been waiting for you. Alexander reached his hand out, offering a handshake. Dmitri promptly bowed his head before shaking his hand. Your Imperial Majesty, it's an honor. Would you like to head inside? It's getting cold out here. Alexander gestured to the palace. Thank you, sir. A servant opened the palace doors for both of them. As soon as they entered, the two were greeted by a gust of warm air. The palace was brightly lit by countless chandeliers and several lit torches hanging against the wall. The blazing fire of the fireplace was the main source of heat in the whole palace. Please, sit down. I'll have some tea sent to us. Alexander gestured to the sofa and sat down in front of him. Thank you, sire. Dmitri sat down on the sofa. A servant walked toward the two and served them 2 cups of tea. Alexander politely took his cup and thanked the servant, and then turned to Dmitri. "You must be curious why I called you here today on such short notice." "Yes, sire. I was surprised when I got the call. If I may ask, why did you want to meet me?" Dmitri had a confused look on his face. Alexander took a sip of his tea first before giving a response. "I called you here to oversee the treatment of my sister. Recently, I was able to synthesize a cure for Anna, and as her royal doctor, I ask for your counsel." "You created a cure for tuberculosis?" Dmitri furrowed. Dmitri had a confused look on his face. "Yes," Alexander replied calmly. Dmitri creased his brows as he eyed Alexander from head to toe. He thought Alexander was joking with him. Tuberculosis is a contagious disease with no known cure. The best treatment for the patient is pain-relieving medicines, fresh air, and fresh food. Catching such a disease would serve as a death sentence, as the mortality rate is high. Medical association from around the world is racking their brains up to come up with a cure, and there was little to no progress despite the people spearheading the research being the doctors in their respective countries. Then all of the sudden, an Imperial Prince, no, a soon-be-crowned emperor, claimed that he already developed a cure. After a moment of silence, Dmitri asked in a serious tone, "With all due respect, Your Majesty, are you telling the truth?" "I'm serious," Alexander replied in a firm tone. "In fact, I can show it to you now." With a flick of a finger, a servant dressed in maid clothes walked over to them while holding a box in her hand. She handed it to Alexander, who then beckoned her to return to her position. Alexander opened the box and Dmitri looked at what was inside. They are injections and vials. The emperor is really serious. Not only did he claim he had developed a cure for TB, but he also presented his proof to Dmitri. However, that alone is not enough. Who knows what is inside that vial? "What is it?" Dmitri asked, rubbing his chin. "It's an antibiotic derived from a specific actinomycetes bacteria called Streptomyces griseus. Just like penicillin that was extracted from the mold, I was able to extract properties from this bacteria that would inhibit S. griseus protein synthesis, leading to its death. A medicine harvested from bacteria?" Despite being a doctor for decades, Dmitri didn't understand his explanation. Yet the way he described the mechanism of the medicine in a confident manner made him able to see a glimpse of hope. Though there were a lot of questions to be asked, he kept them to himself. "Sir, I'm sorry I couldn't follow. When did you start creating the medicine?" "I started it 2 weeks ago." "2 weeks ago?" Dmitri repeated incredulously, inadvertently raising his voice towards the emperor. Dmitri swallowed nervously as he realized the eyes of the servants were on him. "Forgive my rudeness, Your Majesty." Dmitri pressed his forehead against the table in front of him. Alexander chuckled at his gesture. "Please raise your head, Sir Dmitri. It's normal to be shocked when someone like me claimed that I synthesize a medicine despite it not being my profession." "No, sir." Dmitri raised his head. "I didn't mean it that way." The two paused for a moment, giving time for Dmitri to recollect his thoughts before continuing the discussion. The silence made him realize something. "Sir, did you call me here to ask if you can administer the medicine?" "Yes, as the royal doctor you have the authority over her medical care. I couldn't just administer it to my sister without your consent. To help you with your decision, allow me to hand this to you." Another maid walked over to him to hand him something. This time it was a file. "This is the step-by-step procedure of how I synthesized the medicine that will kill TB, I name it streptomycin." As Alexander handed the file to him, Dmitri quickly perused the content. Minutes later, the procedure is described in detail and the mechanism of action is at a theoretical level. It could work. "That's great. But Your Majesty, you're suggesting an untested medicine not approved by any health institutions. If I gave my consent and it didn't work and worsened the health of the princess, my liability could be catastrophic. I could lose my license here all my life." "I understand, which is why I had the Royal Palace Counsel's office draw this up." Another file was handed to Dmitri. "It's an indemnification. So even if it didn't work, you won't be held responsible. Dmitri was silent for a moment. Come on, we both want something. It is to save her life. It's been a year and she isn't doing any better. She's suffering ever since she got that disease. And if my medicine worked as I stated in the paper, it could potentially help people who are afflicted with the same disease as her, saving if not thousands, hundreds of lives. Alexander's words slowly sink in. He slowly opened the folder of the indemnification. And after reading through it, Dmitri finally made up his mind. You have a point, he finally said. If this medicine worked, it'll be revolutionary. But I will only agree of injecting Anna with the medicine if she agrees. That's fine by me. Shall we go to her room now? Yes, Your Majesty. Dmitri stood up and followed Alexander to Anna's room, where a maidservant opened the door for them. The emperor led him to the room where his sister was. As they walked in, they saw Anna lying on her bed, coughing. She was covered with a warm blanket and was visibly shivering. Ah. Cough cough cough. Cough cough. Her cough was weak and painful. Anna was suffering from the disease for a year now, yet there's no sign of her getting better. Anna, whispered Alexander before approaching the bed and sitting in front of her. I have good news for you. The cure I promised, I already created it. Really? Anna exclaimed in glee. If only you're okay with me injecting you the medicine. I have Dr. Dmitri here behind me waiting for your answer. Anna looked back and forth at her brother and Dr. Dmitri. She looked back at her brother who gave her a reassuring smile. All right, I agree. I said to you before, right? That I trust you. Thank you, Anna, said Alexander. He then turned to Dmitri. Doctor, if I may. Dr. Dmitri gave him a nod, giving him a go signal. Alexander then took out a syringe filled with the medicine and took Anna's arm. He rolled up her sleeves until he can see the deltoid muscle. It will hurt a little. Are you ready? Alexander asked. I'm ready. Anna replied. Okay then, take a deep breath and hold it in. Anna did as told and Alexander quickly inserted the needle and injected the medicine into the muscle. Anna winced at the pain and let out a cry. Ooh. After the injection, Alexander placed Anna's arm at her side again. He then patted her on the back and said, why don't you rest up? The medicine will start working soon. Okay, brother, Anna replied weakly. She then closed her eyes and fell asleep. Alexander smiled at his sister as he saw her sleep peacefully before turning to Dmitri. What do you think, doctor? I will observe her and see if there's any improvement. Very well, call me if something came up. Yes, Your Majesty. Creator's thoughts. Sorry I'm just diamond. Hello guys. I'm sorry if I wasn't able to upload a chapter yesterday due to my internet serving provider having a network outage that lasted for 16 hours. So this is the chapter I was supposed to upload yesterday. From this chapter onwards, I'll only upload one chapter per day until I get a contract. This way, I can stockpile many chapters in case of an emergency. That's all. Thank you for reading this book. Please do give me your power stone as it will help me climb the ladder of WSA rankings. Comment. 2 comment. Vote. 1 left. Send gift. Chapter 16, Progress. Dmitri observed Anna for the next few days and saw that her condition was gradually improving. The coughing became less frequent and she was able to get out of bed and walk around. On the 7th day, Dmitri went to Anna's room to check on her one last time. He was amazed at what he saw. Anna was completely cured. Like there was no trace of the disease in her body. Dmitri couldn't believe it. He had seen many patients with tuberculosis, but he had never seen anyone recover so quickly. He knew that this medicine was going to be a game changer if the drug worked. Not only would it save lives, but it would also change the way people thought about tuberculosis. Dmitri went to Alexander's office to give him the news. Your Majesty, I am happy to report that Anna is completely cured. Despite his joyous announcement, Alexander wasn't impressed at all. I wouldn't say she's completely cured. There are still streptomyces bacteria in her system. It will take at least 6 months of medication until she's cured. Still, thanks for letting me know, I feel relieved. Upon hearing Alexander's response, Dmitri's facial expression turned gloomy. Nevertheless, the cure is working and it's a huge achievement for the prince. As an Imperial Prince whose task is to inherit the throne, he didn't expect the would-be soon emperor to create such a sophisticated medicine that could potentially eradicate the threat of tuberculosis. If the medical world were to hear about this, they would certainly award him a Nobel Prize for medicine or physiology. He's impressed at the medical knowledge of the emperor so much that he suddenly felt so small. As a man who dedicated his whole life to medicine, curing patients and saving them from their diseases, and wanting to make a name for himself in the medicine world, he felt ashamed that a prince who don't have a medical degree bested him. He too was investing so much effort to developing a cure after getting inspired by a physician who concocted penicillin. Yet the most powerful man in front of him claimed that he developed a cure for tuberculosis in 2 weeks. Only a genius could do that. A man like him whose only power is hard work is no match against a genius. Alexander quickly noticed Dmitri's depressing face and got him concerned. "Dmitri, are you okay?" Yeah. Dmitri smiled and shook his head, trying to shake off his thoughts. "I'm fine, Your Majesty. I'm just so happy that Anna is showing progress in recovery." Alexander stood up from his seat and leaned against a table. "Oh, since you're here, I actually have an idea to speed up her recovery." "Pardon?" "In order to make her recover faster, we should try a combined therapy." "Combined therapy?" Dmitri gave a questioning look. He didn't understand where Alexander was getting at. "Yes, we'll administer her with another type of drug." "Another drug?" Dmitri repeated as his head started to pin, dizzying him. Is he saying that he created another type of medicine? Not only that, he still has questions about the mechanism of the streptomycin that was unanswered. "Before we do that, Your Majesty, may I know how streptomycin works?" Alexander cocked his head to the side. He already gave him the full documentation of how he synthesized the streptomycin. Still, for the sake of decency, he answered. Streptomycin is a protein synthesis inhibitor that binds to the small 16S ribosomal ribonucleic acid of the Streptomyces griseus ribosome, interfering with the binding of formal methionine transfer ribonucleic acid, leading to complete inhibition of protein synthesis, which eventually leads to the death of the bacteria. If you're wondering if it affects the human cell, it won't, since our RNA is structurally different from bacteria. As Alexander concluded, Dmitri was stunned by his explanation. He didn't know what to say. The answer Alexander gave was beyond complicated, as he couldn't picture what was going on a microscopic scale. To keep up with the conversation, Dmitri asked another question. "So what kind of drug did you produce this time? Would it be similar to the streptomycin?" "Actually yes, it's also an anti-tubercular drug. I called it isoniazid." "Isoniazid?" he repeated incredulously. It's the first time he heard that word. In Alexander's original world, isoniazid is used combined with streptomycin in tuberculosis treatments. Isoniazid was synthesized from an organic compound known as 4-methylpyridine or 4-picoline. It was oxidized to obtain isonicotinic acid, which is then heated up with anhydrous hydrazine to form isonicotinic acid hydrazide, aka isoniazid. It's simple to make than the streptomycin, and with enough effort and knowledge, Dmitri could learn it too. In his world, this medicine won't be used for another 30 years. A futuristic medicine. If he were sent back in time rather than reincarnating in another world, he wouldn't carelessly introduce modern medicine, as it could alter the timeline, assuming the time works linearly. But since this is not his world and the future is unknown, then he won't be affecting or altering this world's timeline. Similar to the mechanism of streptomycin, this isoniazid works by inhibiting the synthesis of mycolic acid. You know mycolic acid, right? Yes. Dmitri snapped back to his senses. It's what is composed of the Streptomyces griseus cell wall. You're right. Those words confirmed the fact that Alexander is the one who synthesized the streptomycin. To be honest, Dmitri is confused about his feelings about this matter. He's glad for his sister's recovery, but he can't help but feel a little jealous of Alexander. He can't bear the fact that someone else can create medicine that is beyond his cognitive capacity. Despite knowing that Alexander is a man who didn't study medicine, he still can't accept the fact that he's leagues above him in terms of medical knowledge. However, reality would slap him in the face if he were to know that Alexander was possessed by a man named Thomas Harrier, who not only excel in engineering but in medicine as well. His company started as a biomedical firm, so this made Thomas invest in studying biochemistry and earning him a PhD in biochemistry. It's not only the CEO's job to know how to run his company, he also should know how his products work to innovate so that he can keep his company up competitively. That's his principle. If not for his action, the Harrier Industries would have fallen. Okay, I'll be teaching you how to administer it. Before Alexander could finish his sentence, a knock on the door interrupted him. What is it? Alexander demanded, looking behind Dmitri. It was a man wearing a black suit. Your Majesty, you got a call from Yamato Empire. Who is it? The Prime Minister, Sergei Grigorovich. Okay, patch him through. The man nodded and went out to carry out his duty. I have to take care of something. Perhaps we can continue this later. Sure. I shall excuse myself, Your Majesty. Dmitri bowed and excused himself from Alexander's office. When Alexander was alone in his room, his phone rang, producing a buzzing sound. He picked up his phone to answer the call. Hello, Your Majesty, a man spoke on the other line. Hello, Prime Minister. I was expecting to hear from you soon as you arrive at the Yamato Empire. So what's the news? The first session of the peace treaty was held at the Ruthenia's embassy in Ruthenia. They already started their demands and I think it would be prudent to tell you about it. So what are their demands? They want us to pull out our forces in the kingdom of Choson, war reparations, and a territorial concession of the island of Sakhalin. Hearing that, Alexander slammed the table with his hand. What? That's ridiculous. I know I wanted to end the war, but their demands would make us appear weak. I know, Your Majesty, but we are on a losing side here. Yes, we did lose a significant force in the kingdom of Choson and they shattered the Pacific fleet, but you said to yourself, right? What if we send our Baltic fleet to the Pacific? We would win the war, right? Wait, Your Majesty, are you taking back your order to recall the Baltic fleet? No, I don't. Those sailors are going home, but we can use them as a bluff. Oh, I see where you're getting into, Your Majesty. Since the Yamato Empire doesn't know yet about our Baltic fleet, we can use it as our card to force the Yamato Empire into agreeing to our terms. The Yamato Empire is a rising regional power in Asia, but despite their victories on land against the Ruthenia Empire, they can't afford to go to an all-out war with the Ruthenia. They knew that the Eastern military was poorly funded and supplied and the morale there is low. So technically, what they defeated, they are a bunch of inexperienced troops with outdated technologies. They should be the one paying reparations to us since they attacked us before the declaration of war even arrived in the palace. You do your job, Prime Minister. Assert our dominance. We are a Western power, for God's sake. We won't give them a penny or an inch of land. Is either they accept an antebellum or risk continuing the war. Yes, Your Majesty. I won't fail you. See that you don't. Alexander hung up the phone and sighed loudly. It's not like he wanted to continue a war with the Yamato, as it will go against his promise to the people. But if they were to agree to that demands, it'll be humiliating to the Ruthenian people and would certainly affect their morale. It's the last thing Alexander wanted to happen, but considering the geopolitics, the Yamato Empire would be forced to agree to their demands. Alexander leaned back in his seat, hoping that it'll go according to his plan. Just as he was staring at the ceiling, a knock on the door was heard. He jolted up and straightened his posture. Who is it? It's me, brother.